Yesterday on air, we learnt that, extraordinarily, that 3 former bosses at the hospital where Lucy Letby worked in 2015, 2016, at the time when she was found convicted of killing 7 babies and the attempted murder of 7 others, they've been arrested for gross negligence manslaughter charges. But there's a new development since then. Prosecutors say they are looking at charging Lucy Letby with more baby murders, and they have also sent a file to the Crown Prosecution Service. Talk us through what's going on.
So lots of developments in this case. Let's begin, be absolutely clear about this. Lucy Letby is in prison serving life sentence for the murders of 7 babies and the attempted murders of 7 others. Those convictions stand. She had an appeal. She was unsuccessful. She protests her innocence, and her case is with the Criminal Cases Review Commission, the body which investigates potential miscarriages of justice, and it has the power to refer her case back to the Court of Appeal. If that happens, it won't happen for some months. Yeah. So that's the position as far as Lucy Letby is concerned. It has also been the case that Cheshire Police have, for a couple of years been looking at whether she committed further offences, either at the Countess of Chester Hospital or at Liverpool Women's Hospital where she worked. The period that they're looking at is between 2012 to 2016. So they're looking at deaths of other babies and collapses, non-fatal collapses of other babies, to see whether it's linked to Letby and whether she could potentially have been responsible. So that is ongoing. And then the other strand, Julia, which you've highlighted, is this arrest on Monday of 3 senior leadership officials at the Countess of Chester Hospital. They were working there at the period that Lucy Letby was there, and they have been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. In other words, it's alleged that they committed actions which were grossly negligent, or they didn't do anything when they should have done, which amounts to gross negligence manslaughter. Now, they have been arrested. They have not been charged. They've been released on police bail pending further investigations, and they haven't been named at this stage.
No, indeed. Although, as I was saying on the show yesterday, if you follow the case closely and the criticisms, you might be able to guess perhaps who at least a couple of those 3 may likely be. What was interesting is the announcement from the police yesterday about those arrests of the hospital bosses made it very clear that this had no bearing on the guilt of Lucy Letby, because you knew immediately this would be leapt on by many of those campaigning for her to get a retrial or to be freed. They're claiming that she's the victim of a miscarriage of justice on the basis that, oh, well, look, there were failings by bosses, failings at the hospital. We know that this already was, a failing neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital, and therefore that was why babies died, and not at the hand of a serial killer nurse, which is what the juries have ruled. But that's not the case. This is in relation to, if these charges are brought, but these arrests certainly already have happened, this is in relation to, the idea that no action was taken when there were concerns raised. And this all came up in the trial and in subsequent reporting. When it comes to possible more charges for Lucy Letby, as you mentioned, this is at 2 different hospitals. This has been something that's been ongoing because since the beginning of this inquiry, because a huge number of babies' deaths and collapses have been investigated by the police in different hospitals, haven't they?
Yes, and this is a very, very complex piece of work because the medical evidence in some of these cases is not always clear, and then you have conflicting expert evidence, as we have seen in regard to the deaths for which she has been convicted. We've had a whole panel of experts who have come out instructed by her defence, saying these weren't murders, these were deaths by natural causes, and the prosecution experts have got it completely wrong. So I think the difficulty for the police and prosecutors is, if they want to charge Lucy Letby with more murders or attempted murders, will be to ensure that the medical evidence is absolutely spot on. They will be aware that will probably be contested.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they should do that anyway, shouldn't they? Do you think if there were further charges brought and there were a trial, and again, people are innocent until proven guilty of any particular crime, even if they've been convicted of a previous crime, that if she were convicted of more murders or attempted murders, that might put to rest the claims that she is a victim of a miscarriage of justice?
I mean, yeah, there's a few steps down the road.
Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of ifs there.
I think, yes, of course. I mean, I think if there was a fresh trial on new charges and she was convicted, I mean, that would be a massive setback for her. And I think, the public opinion might move in a different direction. But we're some way from that. And it's very difficult to know how all these things will play out, because there's one other element, which has been the public inquiry, the Thirlwell inquiry, which has been looking into conditions at the hospital and so on. Now, it's very interesting to note, and I think it's important, worth saying, that during that inquiry, and we can report this because it was said during the inquiry, it heard that claims that executives at the Countess of Chester Hospital displayed a form of individual and corporate self-protection that should have no place in the NHS. That was a claim made by one.
No place in the NHS, and yet it's happened every single time. We've had cases where there have been concerns about unnecessary deaths or injuries, whether it's babies or adult patients. Danny Shaw, great to have you on the show explaining that.